orange juice and grape juice, hey, you remember all these things when it has to show these things happen, people fall apart, but we're discussing the halacha, what is better? Orange juice is better than grape juice, because grape juice is like a mini form of tseveah. There's a malacha called tseveah, dying, D-Y-E, dying. One of the malachas in the Mishkan was dyeing. They would take the material, the wool, and they would put it into a hot pot where it was boiling. There was dye that was boiling there. It was full of dye, hot. They put the wool inside, and it dyed it. It changed the color. So this is some level of dyeing, even though it's not really dyeing, because you're actually ruining. That's not how you don't want the tablecloth to be full of grape juice, but it's still a form of dyeing, and we have to refrain from doing this. But in a situation when there's a fire, and what are the options? The options are pouring water or pouring grape juice. Then pouring grape juice is a better choice because water, according to some opinions, is transgressing biblically. You're washing a tablecloth, whereas when you're pouring grape juice on material, according to all opinions, that's only rabbinic because that's not an actual form of dyeing. You're actually ruining the tablecloth. So bottom line is, between grape juice and water, pouring grape juice is a better choice. There's no grape juice available, then you could pour water. Even though water, some say, is an issue, but so it really depends. We're talking about you don't want the fire to spread. What's the net? It's better than putting out the fire. Extinguishing the fire is worse. So we allow in this situation, because the fire is going to spread, we allow you to pour water on the tablecloth. So again, these things, when things happen, people get nervous and they forget what's going on, but we still have to understand what the halacha is. We need to know what is the ideal thing to do. Now, being already talking about this, we're gonna get to questions soon. So a better choice, again, this practically when things happen, people are like, they lose themselves. But we're discussing, let's say, you want to know, like, what's better? A better way would be if you have jugs of water that you can put around the fire. If you just have let's say you have lots of bottles. You have a lot of bottles on the table, bottles of seltzer and water, and there's a little fire burning. So the option is, should you pour water on the tablecloth or put bottles around the fire? Putting bottles around the fire is better because you're not wetting the tablecloth. You're not washing the tablecloth. You're putting bottles around the fire, and then it allows that the fire shouldn't spread. Because if it does spread, what's going to happen? It's gonna. In other words, I mean, if it does spread, it's going to spread. In other words, when it spreads and it starts beating against the bottles of water, eventually it will crack and will melt the bottles, and then the water will pour out and put out the fire. Get it? Okay, you had a question.
Yeah. But now I'm just thinking about like all the bottles melting. I don't know how well that would work against like a fire. That's like put in front. Anyway, washing. Isn't washing like scrubbing? Like I remember reading somewhere that like you're trying to get like a stain out or something. It's better like it's not scrubbing or something like that. You're saying washing is just pouring water on?
Yeah, so in the last class you went into details about washing. You don't want to wash clothing on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Washing is either putting water on it or scrubbing it. Scrubbing the material is also considered washing. Wringing out, squeezing out the liquid is washing it. But pouring water on it, even if it's clean, there are opinions that say it's prohibited. How did you know? No, just look at my sweater in a second.
Something bottle.
Let's
Like-
try it out,
Like
guys.
plastic against the fire compared to like, I don't know.
Okay, who's got
But also
plastic
like
bottle?
water,
Let's do
even
that.
if pour like break or a liquid, it would like fall off the table too, instead of like containing itself against the fire.
Okay,
I
It all seems
feel
like
like
bad
there's
options.
potential here.
the fire,
Like that's like people freak out, it's because like a fire spreads really fast, and also
Okay.
the liquid like
Correct.
also exacerbated too. So
Exacerbated, why?
like, I don't know, like. it-
Not a grease fire.
correct, correct. When fires happen, generally speaking, and I've told you from experience also, when they happen, everyone goes crazy and people they just, and I'm always like putting water around it and they're like, no, then they get nervous. That's how it is. I can't, but the bottom line is, there are situations that I have been by and I've seen very clear that there's no danger around, there's no danger because it's right in front of me, right? I see, I'm here, I see. What's very common is when you have the fire low on the table, in this paper, there's napkins, the napkin falls into the fire and it catches fire. So everyone gets nervous, but what's the danger involved? I mean, if there's a kid cleaning on the table, infant, fine, but I'm saying usually you're there. A napkin can't burn for so long. Fire needs fuel. The napkin is going to burn. You're watching. You're right there. So you pour water around it. You see what's happening. There's no need to grab water and pour over it. There's no need for that usually. I know. I've been in my situations where people get nervous right away, and they say, "Well, you have to pour water." And that's it. But there's no need for it. So yeah, it depends. Anyways, it is what it is. This is. Okay, so the next malacha that we're going to talk about is in connection to this is severe, is dying. We already mentioned it over here, but the malacha of dying is a malacha in itself. We just mentioned was in the Mishkan. And what is a practical application for the malacha of dying? There isn't really too much to talk about. Like you can't die on Shabbos. D-Y-E, can't do dying on Shabbos. So what? What does it mean practically on Shabbos? What it means is basically putting on makeup. You can't put on makeup on Shabbos because putting on makeup is dying. Dying material, dying skin, anything that's meant, there's a purpose in it, is the malach of dying. So you can't, there's no heter for putting on makeup on Shabbos.
So what's with all of these brands of like Shabbos makeup? They seem questionable.
Well, you just said it says it's Shabbos. It's authorized to be used on Shabbos. You're saying, how is it authorized?
Yeah.
Because the definition of dyeing is where take material. What does it mean you're dyeing material? That the dye gets into the material. Usually, when you're doing makeup, my understanding is that it gets absorbed in the skin. You're not putting a coating over the skin, right? It's not a coating that you put it over, like you're spreading like something that's over it. Makeup, my understanding is that it gets absorbed in the skin somewhat, right? It's going into the skin somewhat.
Okay.
The Shabbos makeup, my understanding is that it's made in such a way that it's only hovering over the skin. It's not getting absorbed, but it's just like a layer over it. But in any case, if there's a hechsher for Shabbos, it's a reliable hechsher like any other kosher product you use. It's authorized and it should be okay.
Would it be like a food texture or like I don't
Usually there's a hechsher. It says it's kosher, usually has a hechsher. Usually it should be reliable. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's putting on something on your skin that's getting absorbed. It doesn't mean that it's going into the material, into the skin. It's not going into the skin. Now, for example, now, are you allowed, let's say, Shabbos comes and you forgot to put on the makeup, and I feel very bad, I'm gonna put on makeup. Now, question is, oh, I have cherries in the house. I can't use makeup, I'll use cherries. Cherries stains very bad, and for makeup, it could be a very good substitute. The question is, are you allowed to use cherries? What's the answer? No, when no one uses cherries, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is you're using it, and that's just this is what you want to use. It's doing a purpose. It's getting absorbed in the skin somewhat. You can't do that on Shabbos. Yeah,
Is there another thing wrong with people like that drawing?
what, what's this?
With your like writing?
There's a different malacha writing, but this is done, two separate malachas. Another example today would be if someone is bleeding, you cannot use a cloth to stop the bleeding. Okay, don't get nervous. You can't use material. You don't use a towel, but you use disposable. Back in the days, we didn't have disposable, so it says they had a way how to stop the bleeding. And then after it stopped, they put a cloth on it, something like that. Whatever. Anyways, these days, Baruch Hashem, we have disposable. We have napkins, paper towels. Paper towels are not pre-cut, but I actually every Shabbos I always pre-cut paper towels. My wife tells me, "Why are you doing it for? What do you need it for?" I'm saying, let's have it in case we need it. You know, whatever it is. That doesn't have to be adopted for bleeding. It can be other things because you can't cut paper towels on Shabbos. But in any case, there's no problem with bleeding. Obviously, stopping bleeding with disposable, but using anything that's washable, like a towel, any material, an undershirt, anything, cannot be used. Now, when I say it cannot be used, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, if someone is bleeding, like really bleeding, you have to stop the bleeding. We're talking about when you have the ability, when it's available. It's like available right away. There's a box of tissues. You know, you grab the tissues. Don't grab a towel if it's not available and someone is bleeding. You have to use your common sense. I mean, put it this way: what exactly, if someone does use a towel to stop bleeding, what is he transgressing? It's really a machloikus. It's not really dying because you're really destroying, you're really damaging the material. Definition of dying is that you're improving the fabric. By nature, what is, it's not the right one, but what is the malach of dying? The malach of dying is that you want to do something to improve the material. If you're stopping the bleeding with a towel, you're ruining the towel. So some opinions say it's not a problem. Some say you should, it's a problem. And Dow Tanema says you should be strict. Yeah, you should be strict. That's, you should avoid doing it. But in a situation, if you use your common sense, if a person is bleeding and you need to stop the bleeding, then obviously if you don't have availability of napkins or tissues or paper towels, then you use a towel. Now, by the way, as we're talking about paper towels, and what if you don't have, you have paper towels available? Let's just always bleeding. There's paper towels, but it's not pre-cut. So what should you do? Cut the paper towels or use material? What's better? Cutting the paper. Very good, yeah. Good. Material is better. Use material than cutting the paper towels. Because cutting the paper towels for sure is a malacha. Because making it fit to use. Now, there's something else. You could use paper towels without cutting the tooth. It's kind of an odd situation, but technically you could use material. You could use paper towels without cutting it. Make a bit more of a mess. You just pull it. So I'm saying if you have that option, so it's not about using it, it's about cutting it. If you want to go that route, you could do that way also. Yeah.
If you have a black towel, would that be better than using something like a white piece of paper towel that's in on a roll? Or is there any
Is
issue
a
with
black towel better than what?
like having white napkins that will definitely absorb the color? Or like
No,
black ones?
disposable is better. Disposable is
you
always
don't have-
better than material.
Okay. Why
Is a black towel, now within towels, is black better than white? Yes, sure. Black is better than white. Because obviously, because white, you dye and get a color from red. The black is not really, you don't really see what's going on over there. Yeah. Now, but practically, in situations come, someone is bleeding, people aren't thinking and people rush, but it's good to know talacha. So it's not because sometimes the brain is working and you could apply it. So okay.
Why is
disposable better than.
Why? Because material, because disposable, there's nothing, there's no connection to dying with disposable because it's going to the garbage. Something that's going to the garbage, it doesn't even pertain to say, oh, you're dyeing the material, it's material that you're dyeing a different color. Because it's going to the garbage right away. So what are you doing? You're improving it's you don't care about it at all.
Then if you get a towel filled with blood, you're gonna throw it out.
You're gonna wash it.
Nope. If it was filled with blood, oh my God, I would throw it out.
Okay,
No.
Well, my
fine.
towel will stain with blood. I'm confused.
Some people will wash it. And if a person will throw it out, that makes it less of an issue. It takes down the severity of what it is. In any case, a person needs to use a towel, they can use it. If there's no material available, use a towel. And usually people use material. Okay, so the next malacha we're going to start at least is the malacha of koishen. At least we'll begin the malacha of making knots on Shabbos. So not allowed to make a knot. How's that sound? You're not allowed to make a knot. That's very confusing.
Well, you know on the board also the word for dying,
Okay,
the word for dying.
the malacha for dying is soiveya. Soiveya. Okay, soiveya is dying. Now it's the malacha of koishen. You can't do knots. In the Mishkan, so any malacha they can't do Shabbat, that's what we did in the Mishkan for the building of the Mishkan. They would make knots. Why would they make knots in the Mishkan for? Because they had to trap a fish, a special fish that had a blue color, and they used that color, that dye, for the tapestries that covered the Mishkan. So they needed the blue color that came from a fish called chilozing, and they had to trap the fish. You had to make nets. When you make nets, the way they made it back then, they made it with tying knots. That's what it was then. Sometimes untying because you needed to take a piece from here, from this net to the other net. So there was tying and untying. Both is a malach in the Mishkan, so you cannot tie on Shabbos. According to the Torah, tying is only prohibited if it's a kesher shel kayoma. A kesher shel kayoma. What does kayoma mean? What's a kayom? Malachai kayom. Kayom means permanent, existing. That, according to the Torah, it's only prohibited if it's a knot that's a permanent knot. For example, what's the example of permanent knot these days? I always use the example of tzitzis and tying a garbage bag. Tzitzis, familiar with tzitzis a little bit? The tzitzis, sometimes it gets loose, you have to tie it. Yeah, so if you want to make it tight, you can't do that on Shabbos because you want it to be permanent, so you can't do that. You take out the garbage, you want to tie it, make a permanent knot. You usually once, twice, you make a double knot, then you take out the garbage. Then it's also a permanent knot. You could question it's really a permanent knot because it's not really meant to stay that way permanently, right? So if you're concerned, it's going to stay permanent. But in any case, it's definitely, even if it's not permanent, it's still permanent. What other, these are the examples I have for permanent knots. But any knot that it's meant to stay this way is prohibited by the Torah. Now, midrabanan, the definition for a kesher kayama is a little different. Midrabanan, a kesher shel kayama is if it's going to stay for 24 hours. Kesher shel kayama, midrabanan. Midrabanan. What's a kesher shel kayama midrabanan? So our sages come and say that even if it's going to be just for 24 hours, you're tying a knot that's going to stay, that is meant to stay for 24 hours, is considered a permanent knot. So rabbinically, it's considered a permanent knot, and it's still prohibited. So, Now, before we go on, we need to understand what is called a knot. What do you mean, what is called a knot? A knot is a knot. What's the definition of a knot? Anyone has any examples? What is it not? Give me an example of a knot. Funny, it sounds like a funny question, like what is a knot? But yeah, what is a knot?
Like tying a dress, tying a hair headband,
I
doing
don't know what to mean by tying a headband.
double knotting.
I know what that is. Tying a headband, think a ponytail going around
No,
like that.
no, you take a piece of fabric that's intended to be a headband,
Yeah,
go like this, you tie it in a bow, and then you,
like tying your shoes.
yeah,
Okay,
No,
so
but
let's
you
talk about
can
tying your
open.
shoes.
okay.
You can open like the shoe, they're not the shoe.
Okay, one second, yeah, you can open your shoes, one second, but now we'll
Oh,
understand.
that's what
You need to understand what is a knot, okay? Tying your shoes is a knot. When you tie your shoes on Shabbos, like a knot in a bow, you are doing a knot. But don't get nervous yet. It's only when is it prohibited if it's meant to stay for 24 hours. When you tie your shoes, you usually don't want it to stay for 24 hours, right? Because when you go to sleep, you usually take off your shoes. That's why you're allowed to tie your shoes. But if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you put on your shoe, you're putting on your shoes Shabbos morning, knot and a bow, and you don't want to take it off much of Shabbos because you're flying on a plane. And usually you take your shoes, anyways, when you're sitting on the plane. But let's say your plan is you're not taking it off for 24 hours. You would not be allowed to tie your shoes Shabbos morning. And you want to add something?
Or if I have a balloon,
A
it's
balloon.
like a knot. When I close the balloon.
That's very good. Tying a balloon is a permanent knot. But tying a balloon is worse than that because that's making a keyring. You're actually doing something. No, make my notes.
What about a slip knot? Like,
A slip knot is not a knot.
yeah,
No. Anything that you can take apart, just
Yeah.
is not a knot. Just one pull, it's not a knot.
So a bow,
A bow and a knot, like tying the shoes.
regular one, the 3 and 1, you're able to put this. Or is it a double knot? Like extra security.
Oh, 1 second. Okay. So the question is being asked now. I said that if you can take it out in one pull, it's not a knot, right? The question is when you tie your shoes also, you give it one pull, what's the problem? When I said with one pull, it goes, you can undo it, I mean undo it completely. When you untie your shoes and you give one pull, it's not totally out. It's not, that's still considered a knot. It's not considered a strong knot, but it's a knot. Okay. Now, what are other examples of a knot? Other examples of a knot is this. This is a knot. It's also called a knot.
thank you. Is it?
You can throw it around if you want.
Oh, I see.
That's a knot too. Now, what about zip ties? What about this?
Those
What
are-
about if I take this? I don't have another bag over here. And I go around like this. So there is a machloikus, if this is called a knot, right? You know the catch?
Thank you for asking.
That's totally.
Is that called a knot? There's a machloikus if it's called a top knot. Some people say it's called a knot. Some people say it's not. It's not. N-O-T. You get it. It's not a typical knot. Because a knot, because you just taking something and you're twisting it. So I'm saying it's a knot because that's actually how you make rope by twisting and winding. To some hold, it's a knot. It's a machloikus. Okay. Now, is that bag here? Here's the
Oh,
bag.
is that one?
Yeah, let me show you some, what?
You're not allowed to, is braiding, is that on the left? I'm not allowed to braid because it's knotting.
Braiding, we're gonna get to braiding, it's like braiding,
Like I just remember like always like with the kids that would babysit on Shabbos, like they would be like, Oh, I'm not braiding, I'm twisting.
The braiding could be an issue. I have to double check about it, but I'm pretty sure the braiding is an issue. Now, I showed you over here, this is called a knot. Now, but within this type of knot, you can have, if you can make it even stronger. So when I showed you before, it wasn't so strong. What you saw before was you could take it apart if you want to, right? It's a knot. It's a knot. You can take it apart, but it's still called a knot. What if I go like this? Now it's very hard to take it apart.
Yeah.
Right, so this is called a kesher chazak. This is called a strong knot. A strong knot becomes an issue even if it's less than 24 hours. So you could make a knot if it's less than 24 hours. But if it's a strong knot like that, then you cannot do it even if it's less than 24 hours. Yeah.
Is there an idea of like a professional knot?
Yeah, that's where it comes from. So this knot, for example. So let's say you want to tie your challah. Friday night, you finish with the challah, right? You want to put away the challah, put it into the bag, and you want to tie it like this. So the way I showed you before, that's a regular knot. If you're tying it Friday night, you can open it up Shabbos morning with a sukkah. So it's less than 24 hours, it's okay. But if the meal is over Shabbos day and you're putting away the challah and you don't plan to open it up till Monday, till Sunday night, let's say, then you cannot tie it. Talking about even if this is a very strong knot, right? So even a regular knot, even what I showed you before. If you tie it after the meal Shabbos afternoon, and you don't want to open it in the next 24 hours, you cannot tie the challah. If you plan to use it to Malava Malka, so after the meal Shabbos afternoon, you finish the meal and you tie it and you plan to use it for Malava Malka, you plan to use it within 24 hours, then you can tie it because you plan to open it up within 24 hours. However, if you make it a very strong knot like this knot, you cannot do even Friday nights. Because even though you plan to open it up Shabbos morning for the Shabbos Sukkah, but it's a strong knot. A strong knot cannot be made even if it's for less than 24 hours. Now, there's another type of knot, which is not called a knot, that's winding and tucking. So if you wind something around something, when I grew up, the Sefer Torah, did you ever watch when they tied the Sefer Torah in show? They had like a Velcro, there was a Velcro around it, yeah. When I was a kid growing up, there was no Velcro. Didn't look like this, it was a little nicer, but they would tie around it, and then they would tie, like you tie your shoelaces, but boom, that's how you tied it. So, if it was Shabbos and Mincha, when you finish reading the Torah after Mincha, when is the next time you take out the Sefer Torah? Not till Monday, but more than 24 hours. So they would tie. So when the Shabbos Shachris, when they finished reading the Torah, they would tie it. They could tie it the regular way. Because getting used for Mincha again. But when they tied the Sefer Torah after Mincha, they wouldn't be able to tie it the regular way with the knot and a bow. Because it's not going to be used until Monday, that's more than 24 hours. So then what they would do is they would just go around it. Just go, just go around and around and around and around and around. He would go around and then he would start tucking it in like this. Just tuck it in. Okay. That's not called a knot. There's no knot over here, even though it's holding strong, but there's no knot. Going around, okay, so going around, it's going to hold strong, but doesn't mean it's a knot. And then at the end, you tuck it in. You tuck it in, that's not called a knot. By the way, a chassan under the chuppah, when he puts on the gartel, that's how they put it on also, because you're not supposed to have any knots under the chuppah. So when they wrap around it with the gartel to go around, and then they tuck in a few times until it holds strong. but it's not considered a knot. So,
Why is there
huh?
why is there not under this effect?
I'm not sure what the reason is. I was thinking about it this morning and I was saying, I didn't have a chance to look it up. Okay, now there's something called a double knot, right? A double knot. What is a double knot? Is a double knot considered a strong knot? So we have over here a kesher shel kayama, a rabbinically, even a knot that's meant to stay for 24 hours is considered a permanent knot rabbinically, so you cannot tie your shoelaces if it's meant to stay for 24 hours. But if it's a strong knot, we're right over here. If it's a strong knot, if it's a strong knot, then even less, it's prohibited even less than 24 hours. Less. Than 24 hours. Now, what about a double knot? In what category is a double knot? Is a double knot considered like a regular knot? Or is it considered like a strong knot? Anyone? A double knot. A double knot is considered a strong knot. So to make a double knot, you cannot do, even if it's less than 24 hours. But there is such a thing as a loose double knot. I have anything to show it on here, but if you go once and twice, and it's not strong, then it's loose, then it's not a strong knot. So double knot doesn't mean necessarily it's a strong knot. It could be a strong knot also, but it could be not a strong knot. So if you're going and doing a double knot and it's loose, then it's not a strong knot. It's like a regular knot, and it's only prohibited if you plan to leave it there for 24 hours. Any questions? No.
Yeah, you do it on the third one, like on a one, do the thing, and do one, and it's really tight. Is that a strong knot? It's one.
Very good. I showed, so the same thing was on the plastic. On this plastic over here, I showed you here, you can make it very strong, and it's a strong knot. If you go like this on the gartel, and you pull it strong, then you can't do it even for less than 24 hours. Now, any knot that you cannot do, you cannot untie it. So if we say, oh, you cannot tie this knot, then you can't untie it. If we say you're allowed to tie the knot, then you could untie it. However, if you tied it by mistake, sometimes it happens like you tie your shoes and by mistake, you pull it the wrong way, oops, you have this strong knot over there, and you're frustrated. What do? Right? So we said you cannot do a strong knot on Shabbos. And if you cannot do it, you cannot untie it. So what do? How do you untie if you by mistake you make a strong knot? What do you do on Shabbos? So the answer is you could untie it. Yeah, but a strong knot you cannot tie, and that means you cannot untie it. How are you allowed to untie it?
Can't take it off otherwise?
Huh?
Can't take the shoe off otherwise?
Because you did not do it with intention. If you cause yourself a strong knot, it was not intended. It's not called a knot if it's not intended. Intention is very important here. If it wasn't done with intention, it just by mistake, you pulled the wrong way and ended up with a strong knot, that's not called a knot. Because you didn't intend to do it. So therefore you can untie it also. There's no problem.
What about jewelry that gets tangled up? It doesn't create a
If
knot.
what?
Jewelry that gets like tangled up.
Tangled up is not a knot. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mr. Shem.
Thank you.
Well, about the braiding. Maybe braiding.
We'll talk about braiding tomorrow also.
Yeah.